Huzzah! Okay, I'm going to pretend this time that I actually have everything up and running appropriately. All right, so now that I've moved everything, go. Glad I can watch you tonight. Sweet. Hey, James. Awesome. Glad you made it, dude. All right. So, as per usual, appreciate people jumping in and stuff. If you are here, welcome to tonight's sit and chat. I'm going to be talking about the Nexus Ultima 41-day campaign that we're going to be running on February 22nd. It is a Sunday, and yes, it is sold out. But don't worry, it is important if you are interested in this to stick around because we will be doing lots of these events in the future. In fact, I have about 5 more planned out. I just off to the printers, so to speak, to get some cool banners and stuff done up for it. So it's gonna be pretty sweet. I do want to give a minute as usual, make sure everything is going well. Oh, and here we go. All right, what is that thing? Can you hear me now? Ooh. Okay, so I have a cool new mic. New. I've had it for a while. It's been in a case. I'm actually using it though. So I want to make sure that everything's coming across clear, crystal clear. So as per usual, can you hear me? Question mark and stuff. Flesh is weak. So I am excited. This event is shaping out to be something super cool. I really have no idea if you guys can hear me. I just realized I didn't turn on any of my monitors or anything. Yup. Awesome. Good. I wanted to make sure. Yeah. So I have a weird feature on these things. I just want to make sure everything's good. A little robotic at times, but fine. Okay. That's probably my internet connection. And I do apologize about that. That's at intersections through 6 feet of concrete and walls and stuff, but we'll get there. All right, so what I am going to do is I'm going to try and use a handy little device here and pull up some of the opening narrative. So for those of you that are not aware, I have been working in concert with Sean McNabb, great friend of mine. He's been helping me kind of pick up the pieces and figure out the lore and what's going to be going on for this particular campaign. So it's been asked a couple of times, where and when does this take place, right? This campaign picks up almost immediately after Shadows of Cirillo Prime narrative event. So if any of you got a chance to play in our crusade over the summer, that would be part of it. But predominantly speaking, this particular story picks up before that does, which is kind of interesting. Let's see, I can you with your Wi-Fi issues. Oh, cool. Nice. That's actually good to know. I actually just switched internet providers, so who knows? It could also be my lovely 2017 MacBook that I'm using. Great high quality stuff here. Let's see. I want to find... I'm in the wrong app. Let me switch over here. What I'm going to try and pull up is actually the cool house narratives and rules that we're going to be going over. It's the introduction. There we go. Yes. Cool. Port. Another planetary report. Also got planetary reports. We'll go into those. Nice. Okay, there we go. I've got my introductory notes there. I just want to make sure everything is good. So so while I am still waiting for a few people, I see we've already got 9 people that have jumped in, which is awesome. And thanks for the like. I appreciate that. Feel free to post any questions that you might have about the upcoming event. Today, predominantly speaking, I want to be talking about terrain house rules. We're going to go over the opening narrative here, and I'm going to be talking about some of the first mission examples. I just realized I'm going to need to grab my mission deck, which is over there, but I'll get up in a minute and grab it. So what are you guys working on at home? I'm actually pretty curious. I have been, obviously myself, I've been working on my Leagues of Votan, getting all that painted up. Finished up 3 new I built and painted like almost back-to-back sessions, some pioneers for my Votan dudes on bikes. Let's see. Never actually played around with any of the live settings while I'm up here, so I just wanted to make sure. And then I'm going to also do this. If I copy this, let's see what happens. If you haven't already, you could share this on Facebook and stuff, or Discord, whatever it is. That would be great. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and toss the links back in there again. so that people have a chance to join. Boop. Let's see, what does that do? Go. All right. Cool. Let's see. Brad started paying my warlord and getting close to lines and basing. Nice, guys. Nice. Some questionable hyperphase blades. Scorpec's nice. Those are such cool weapons, but yeah, they're kind of a pain in the butt to paint. Yay, flat surfaces. Let's see. Fishing, touching up. Lord of Axes. Paying for the competition. Awesome. Yeah. Let me know if you're going to be joining the painting contest too. That's going to be great. Working on my Necrons. Good job, James. Going Necron. Nice. Like it. Grey Knight's finished. Just need to tie down my army selections. Good choices. Finishing up the green tie, then painting Amantor. Nice. Oh, cool. Awesome, Ramus. That's great. All right. Let's see. Where am I? Why did it bounce me like that? That was weird. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Post that in. All right. Let's go over to the face of books. I'm live. It's so funny. Shortcuts and things make it seem so weird. Okay, where is... Don't know. All right, here we go. Like the streamer. You guys know it. Did it not post my things? There we go. Cool. Yeah. That's so weird. What did... Facebook, man, it's such a struggle. It's like, I feel archaic for still using the thing. It's like the only thing that a lot of people will see. There we go. That's so weird. Why is my post actually not showing up? Weird. Anyway, any hoodle noodle. I ain't gonna worry about it for right now. Lucy, are you leaving me? My cat literally just did like a drive-by, came down for food, and then is giving up and just gonna sit on the stairs. Actually, I just realized you can probably see her. Lucy! She's such a good little beast. All right. Cool. Looking good. All right. So, unless you guys have any further questions, now I got to find that narrative again. Cool. All right. So, I am going to do my best to read this and absolutely not butcher some of the pronunciations, if you will. But I got some really cool lore here and whatnot. Cool. Got my lovely Godzilla glass. Stay hydrated. Yes, water. And I forgot, I did bring it down. I do have my 500 World's Titus book. Boarding action stuff in there looks awesome. I'm really excited for that too. I'm going to be doing a learn to play boarding action next month. I think I've settled on March 14th, but I got to double check the calendar. Not good at calendars and stuff. Lord, there we go. Welcome, Stephen. Welcome. All right. Okay, so let's do kind of a quick recap, if you will. For those of you that weren't there or didn't get a chance to attend, I want to say it was 2023. We hosted a similar style event, one day narrative event where it was the Shadows of Cirillo Prime. During that, we had Tyranid invasion that attacked Cirillo Prime and its surrounding planets. And then, of course, Chaos Marauders and all kinds of stuff broke out and tried to take advantage of the crazy situation. And the Imperium, both the defenders and the reinforcements that showed up, tried to work together to fight off everything, but obviously did not go well. In the end, there was a little bit of a scuff between the two Imperial sides, making their strengths not as strong as they should have been. Alliances kind of faltered a little bit there, and allowing the Tyranids to wreak a lot of havoc and damage. But really what happened in the end is Chaos won it. After that, we did a fun summer narrative campaign where we actually did a crusade, which was super cool. And then this is going to be picking up after that. Ethan, I think that is up. It was the ends of 9th, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was the end of 9th. Oh, no. Or yeah, it was the very end of 9th because it was quite literally the same day as the release of 10th edition because the Leviathan box came out that day. Yeah, that day was nuts, man. That was one too many things all happening at the same time. So, but it is what it is. All right. So here we go. Our opening narrative. I'm reading the right document for our Nexus Ultima campaign. Let's see. Okay. Encryption Sapphire Bell. Key code accepted. Entry folder, the archive of Inquisitor Taya Bologna. Create new file. Recording. Strilo Prime was a setback. My master, Lord Inquisitor Karl Harsk, had ensured the world wouldn't fall, whether by raid or by the hungering maw of Tyranid's threat, due to his own incompetence. His mistakes cost us the world and soldiery, the material, and a colleague within the Ordo Xenos, Alda Juris. We were not close, but studying under Harask had given us the bond that perhaps I treasured more than I realized. He will be missed. My master will not. When the Splinter Fleet descended on the planet, they were not alone. Sensing the plunder to be had in the wake of such an attack, we had set upon the raiders of every stripe. We were set upon by raiders of every stripe. Eldari, Orc, war bands of heretics wished to taste wished to taste in the spoils of the planet as the hive ships appeared in orbit. The good Lord Inquisitor had dismissed my warnings before the death, weeks before the invasion. His head emptied by a grandeur who had a non-standard number of arms. He ensured my projects were given the minimum of resources, scattering several members of my retinue across the planet, and ensured his interrogator would keep his secrets by installing a dead man switch into his skull. With harassed deaths, left no line of succession, and no one knew what he had been up to. What just happened? Error, more than one. Apologize, I'm getting a weird error on my computer here. Send one stream to. I have no idea what this means. Apologize for the interruption. Can you guys still see and or hear me? Okay, cool. I'm going to ignore this. I literally have like a giant yellow flag across my thing. So apologize. I appreciate the like 9 yeses in under 3 seconds. That was great. Okay, sorry. Where was I? So it looks like Harask, when he died, he had a dead man switch, which killed him along with a bunch of the other guys. That doesn't sound like fun. So his dismissal put me in a shadow of doubt. Those who considered him their equals in important matters. Little had I known that he talked down about me to the governor or fellow members of his own order. A local magos of the Mechanicum refused my message 6 times before he had denied to hear that his work gangs were filled with Xenos hybrids. Of course, he was screaming for my help at that point. The Inquisitorial Rosette holds power, but coercion, I can read, often breeds subtle defiance. I eventually managed to bend them to my needs. But it was like pushing boulders through sucking mud. Their stubbornness and my lack of resources, because of how the good Lord Inquisitor kept his personal acolytes fighting each other, ensured that nothing would be done at the speed that was required. The Imperial Navy translated into the system hours after the Hive Fleet, but by the time the myriad forces assailing the planet had caused the defenders to focus on pirate hunting excursions to protect their treasures, only to be crushed between the ravening hordes and opportunistic salvos. Orbital defenses that should have assisted the Navy fell silent, leaving them to fight the space battle on their own. It helped less when a band of Chaos worshippers called the Night Brethren took control of the new galactic relay, allowing them to redirect naval forces in counterproductive ways. The Navy would have crippled the bioships, but it was too late by that point. Well, that was pretty cool. The only local mining conglomerate, headed by the Gulver Skyn, a Votan company, was receptive to my warnings. The kin were ready for the Tyranid threat, and it thanks to them that my ship was able to make it off-world. They sold themselves dearly before stealing many of the attacking Xenos before sealing many of the attacking Xenos within the mine tunnels and using their own loaded mining ships to escape in hidden hangars. I will not begrudge them for their greed when I was able to save valuable research, artifacts, and my retinue from a dying world. Using the alias as a cold trader, I have kept in contact with one of theirs by the name of Tunyer, a strategist attached to floating cogitators. Attached to floating cogitators. He does not eat or drink in the presence of non-kin, remaining encased in his armored suit at all times when dealing with outsiders. A religious reason, he says. I have my suspicions, and I imagine that he has the same of me. But we have reached a mutual understanding to simply not ask at this time. Do not play him in regicide. I'm certain that he cheats. But I digress. With Silrillo gone, I've spent my time putting out the fires that have started the wake of its collapse. My Magos, Ariette, has called them blissfully contained to 2 neighboring systems. But that simply tells me that the whole subsector is beginning to rot. End recording. File sealed. Description upgraded to Emerald Bell. So that is our first little story blurb. This is taken from the perspective of the acolytes of the original Inquisitor that was on Zerlo Prime. If you guys don't remember, he actually kind of did die in that. Model that we had for it, which was pretty cool, ended up on one of the tables that just so happened to be covered in Gene Stealer cults. Surprise, surprise. He didn't live, so neither did his followers. And so this actually kind of picks up where that left off. And I think that was really cool. It was a great kind of catch-all story that John came up with, which I think is really cool. So as you can see, Cyrillo Prime was a big narrative focal point, but now we are trying to step away from it as it is completely engulfed by Tyranids and chaos. So let's see. Imperial forces get to pick an extra 500 points on their army list. They were the good guys, right? Yeah. Well, maybe. We'll see. There are no good guys in 40K. You are correct. Yeah, I would definitely stand to argue that. I think you get to make whatever kind of good guy, bad guy, whatever side you want to be on. It's up to you. So anyway, I think that was pretty cool. Just so you were aware as well, that was the Cyrillo Prime and the Cyrillo Prime subsector. So this is going to be a little bit farther out from that. So we're into some of the planets now. So let's go ahead. I'm going to jump. It looks like I've got 1, 2, 3 planetary reports here to read off, you guys. And I want to see what you think. So first one we've got, planetary report, Malagath, second planet of the Galar system. Classification, Death World. Uh-oh, that's not good. People of Malagath already endure one of the harshest environments in the Imperium. The white sands can blind unprotected eyes when still and strip the flesh off bone in seconds when whipped up into the terrible razor storms that rumble across the landscape. Meanwhile, the day's heats can boil the blood and scorch untreated metal, while the night brings forth packs of raptor dogs, crystal scorpions, and flechette serpents to hunt. To live in this world is constantly a fight for survival, and those who are part of the conclaves have perfected it. All right, well, this place sucks. Let's see what else we got. The conclave clans of Malagath are separated into two types, the shadowed and the shielded. That's interesting. The most numerous are the shadowed, nomadic tribes that roam the pure sands to hunt the creatures within. It is a dangerous, meager existence that sees many die to the myriad dangers of the world. Those who succeed, however, have learned every trick to tracking, ambush tactics, and stealth. From their number are drawn the regiments of the Malagath Shade Stalkers. That's cool. That's actually one of the Imperial regiments we've been talking about. So I'm to see them have a name now. Regiment the planet is famous for, and from their efforts are the materials gathered for flak armor produced on other planets. The power, however, is concentrated with the shielded clans, sorry. Living in heavily fortified dome cities, it is here that the imperial power is concentrated. A concentration of administratum and ecclesiarchy personnel exists within these walls. And it is here that the shadowed trade their wares for the necessities that the greater Imperium can provide. In the last century, a new threat has fallen from the heavens. Oh boy, here we go. An orc rock, that's ROKK, fell to the planet during one of its ion storms, and survivors discovered a new playground, embracing the dangers of the planet. Speed was and beast snaggers roam the wasteland, butchering any human or animal they can come across. Like all other challenges, the people of Malagath have adapted to these dangers, picking off Squighoff riders with clever traps or sniping gas tanks to ignite passing snap wagons. All right, this place is pretty cool. This to me absolutely screams Mad Max, Fury Road. So this is pretty cool. I really love the inclusion of, you can tell that it's a very desert world like planet. So cool kind of fauna or flora and fauna in here. Got some crystal scorpions and that flechette serpents, which sound pretty cool. But I do like the idea of the kind of insiders outsides dichotomy we have here with the conclave clans, both the shadowed and the shielded. I think that's really cool. And yeah, we have our first introduction to a militarum like aspect for them, which I think is really cool. And now orcs are going to be a problem. This is awesome. I thought this was about Necrons, guys. What's going on here? Let's see. Sound like this is the Crusade stuff. Malagath was one of the worlds we fought over. Nice. Yes. In fact, it is. You are correct there. All right, let's go on to the next planetary report. This one might seem similar as well. This planetary report is Zekh, Z-E-K-H. So I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is the 6th planet of the Galar system. Classification, mining world. Hey, that's me. I'm first. We like to mine things. Let's see. For over 2 centuries, Zekh has been in slow decline. Once prosperous mining colony, the valuable metals that drew imperial attention have slowly delivered less and less yield. The whole of the planet had dedicated itself to its trade. Communities were less about neighbors and more about which company they had worked for. With less trade, it became likely the world would face neglect. Neglect would starve workforce. This drove many of the contracted companies to greater depths and desperation in searching for a way to pay the tithes, leading to them coming to conflict with each other as the companies became closer to pseudo gangs and makeshift regiments. Anarchy was boiling up as panic began to set upon the inhabitants until the first Black Day was struck. Noctilith, Blackstone. That's pretty interesting. Hopefully these guys don't dig too deep and find a Balrog. That's always bad. The first vein was thought to be a fluke, a meteorite striking the ground from long ago. Then Armenturia mining found the second Galvar Skine, the Leagues of Votan, of the Votan found the third. Suddenly, the fortunes of Zekh began to turn almost overnight. Companies rushed to claim its vast riches, the Imperium governor hungered for the prestige he would get for finding such a commodity. When whole findings tore open a hollow, revealing ancient terrors within. What did I say? Don't dig too deep. You find Balrogs. This is bad. Oops, all Necrons. No, let's hope not. The Necrons did not take kindly to their tomb complex's ransack. Warriors disconnected from their millennia stasis and burned the miners down to atoms with ghost fire. Had they awoken 50 years earlier, it was possible that the world would have fallen almost overnight. However, the discovery of Blackstone had renewed interest in Zek, and the companies were now experienced combatants after centuries of underground war between themselves. Go figure. The slow awakening has become a race against time for both forces. The Zekraham companies seek to eliminate their foe before any reinforcements arrive, while the drowsy cryptex work to awaken the remaining tombs before their discovery puts them on the back foot once again. All right, so that's pretty interesting. It looks like we've got Zek, which is an awesome mining world. I'm going to play there. This is absolutely the table that I'm battling on. I've got to defend Zek. We are the Leagues of Votann, after all. And it looks like we are digging up some Blackstone. I'm going to be trading that off and trying to gather some resources. So this will be pretty interesting. One of the things that Sean and I had actually talked about is that some of the missions are going to be about trade lines and getting that supply and shipping lanes going. So this is pretty cool because I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to be able to play some of this into this narrative, which is great. So yeah, that is our second world, Zek. All right. Let's carry on. So we've got Necrons is a problem. Knew that was going to be a thing. Oops, I actually didn't see that one coming, but I love Mad Max Fury Road, so I'm here for it. Let's go. Third world, planetary report, Graton. Third planet of the Urasun system. Oh, different system. Classification, hive world. Now, there's always got to be a hive world. All right. A shining example of imperial compliance. Grammaton has been one of the most valuable worlds within the subsector. The manufactura within each hive is primarily focused on the production of the Militarim's pride and joy, the lasgun. Nice. Local regiments proudly wield the Grammaton pattern lasgun in their musters, and the trench runners, the hive world own guard force, consider it a massive point of pride to use equipment made on their home world. Men and women from house to work floor serve, and they are often considered among the best within the sector. That's pretty cool. I like to see that. Now we got to come up with our own design for Grammaton pattern lasgun. See if somebody can make that. That'd be super cool. All right. At least they were until House Curran. I'm going to pretend that I'm pronouncing that correctly. House Curran, rulers of Hive Proxima, used their atomics to destroy their neighbor and rival House Rusulkar. Resulkar. Resulkar. I think I'm saying that right. Massed infantry began to spill forth from Proxima, flanked by tanks affixed with spikes and domed with the 8-pointed star. Uh-oh. The governor, Iris Klenner, oh, I should have read these in advance, mercilessly kept a cool head, massing local PDFs and garrisons to defeat this rogue element. Initial skirmishes were promising before Hive Tyrannus rose a different kind of revolt. The cult of the segmented star detonated a payload within one of the elevators of the Hive, destroying the local Minitorum department and much of the command structure before tens of thousands of workers rose at once. PDF troopers fought against what they thought was a similar insurgents as what was ruining Hive Proxima until multi-armed abominations began to tear apart armored checkpoints. Now, Grammaton faces a 3-sided war, threatened necessary supply lines, and risking greater threats being drawn further off. Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Okay, so Chaos Cults basically over and detonate a nuke inside of a different hive, destroying that. And gene stealer cults don't like them. So maybe we've got a case of an enemy of a friend. That's not a good friend. That's gonna be kind of nuts. Cool to see the PDF troopers and of the Gamaton pattern lasgun. I think that is super cool. And we got a lot of houses to deal with, and I got a lot of names to make sure I get the pronunciations right, but I think that's pretty cool. So we now have our 3 planets. So in the narrative event itself, there is a total of, was it 15 tables? Each set of 5 tables is going to represent a battleground on each of these planets, which I think is really cool. Gives a really fun physical tug of war kind of narrative to it. Plus, you get to kind of find what's going on in each zone and battle it out. But we've got Necrons as a big enemy. We've got Orcs as a big enemy. And we've got, of course, more Gene Stealers, which lead to Tyranids. So, of course, more Tyranid infestations and Chaos Cultist group rising up. I wonder which god they belong to. That'll be interesting to find out. Cool. And then it looks like we've got one more little narrative here. So this is a transmission that is received, and this is going to go into the opening setup for the Nexus Ultima campaign. So let's see what we've got here. Transmission received, encryption, Keratos, encryption key approved. Dispatch from Inquisitor Diablona. All right. That's bad. Recipients, Outpost Octavia, Ariette Workshop, and Kronos. This is a deployment order. I need each of you to go to the 3 locations specified below. One of my contacts in the Astropathica has informed me that forces in the Mechanicum of subsector Tellius are acting erratic. Their movements have become strange and withdrawn. Using Aret's research, I've been able to secure what has them concerned. A signal has begun emanating from the void. Whatever this signal is, it's playing havoc on the Martian work. The reports that I received are fascinating in their variety. Void shields are flickering, assembly lines are stuttering, and some noble recaf machine gave him cold coffee. Boy, nobody likes cold coffee. This would be more dangerous, but it only happens in certain places on specific worlds. Not all of them are important, but this has exacerbated issues within several worlds dealing with severe problems. On Malagath, the orcs have rallied under Beast Boss Ragad Teethbreaker and have begun to mitigate diamond miles. This is home to several conclaves of the local shielded clans, and the signal is preventing fortification systems from activating properly. That's not good. I suspect the Greenskins are simply taking advantage of the opportunity, but their dive into those caverns gives me the suspicion that they are following this signal. Ariette, I want you and your team in the area within a system day. Discover what you can and attempt to assist with repairs. Perhaps the machine spirits will listen closer to the pleas of a proper Martian. Interesting. So it looks like we've got a Mechanicum-like person that is being sent off to Malagath, figure out what's going on with the orcs and this signal. Gamaton is currently dealing with civil war between Heritage and Xenos hybrids. Hive Mundus has been a good staging ground for our forces, but their under-hive security has completely failed. This caused sections of their outer defenses to become compromised as enemy assaults assail from perilous secure routes. Kronos, take whatever you need from the armory and assemble who you can on the world. Search and destroy. Something has to be there. Yeah, okay, that's going to be a problem. You have to mess around and find out on that one for sure. But we've got this Kronos character that is going to be checking out Gramon. All right. Zek has already been in our eye due to the Necron awakening. Our contacts within Gulver Skyne have sent a message that the wormways, the main underground routes of the planet, have become extremely active with metal monstrosities. constructs are going berserk, killing anything that they come across and boring openings into the surface. Secured. Octavia, take your crew and find out what's going on. All right. So it looks like we've got another person that is being sent off to try to reclaim some of these underground mining facility areas. So gotta get all those entrances captured and taken back. All of you, the signal has drawn outsiders to Tellius. Expect friends and foes of every stripe. You have your orders. Lona, let's see. And then reception, confirmation pending. Response, Octavia, moving out on admin. Fresh pack of guns will make this simple. Respond, Ariette, portions translated from Binaric. I formally lodge a complaint that my cadre is not going to Zek. However, I will abide. Maybe you could have them bring back souvenirs. Acknowledged. Reception confirmed. Deleting all messages. Messages pushed. All right, that's it. That's our open narrative that we have for the Nexus Ultima campaign. That's pretty sweet, actually. I had gotten some bits and pieces of that, but I hadn't actually had a chance to read over the whole thing in depth like that, and I think that is super cool. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see how people now get to use and kind of build an army list or represent their army on the different planets. But it's going to be cool is that rather than just being one particular location or battle, we're going to get to experience 3 different planets, 3 different types of locations, and what we're trying to accomplish, which is pretty cool. Keep in mind, again, that this is the opening narrative, and this event is the first event in a multi-system series. I know I joked about it a little last time, but it still holds true. This is very much Star Fox 64. We have a set of planets. We know kind of what's going on. We're going to be able to battle and figure out where we're going to next. And like that, we're going to be using this event to figure out what different narrative events we're going to after this. So this sounds like the events of the Crusade are not canon to conflict. I'm sorry, I actually don't know about that, but we have some of the things that are going on with this. So this is a parallel to or perhaps happened beforehand, but it seems pretty interesting. All right. Cool. So it looks like we do have some other things that have popped, which is great. Let's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, wow. We actually have 6 different battlefield areas across most of the planets as well. So it looks like I'll be able to get to deep dive these and talk about them next week, so we can kind of see what's going on. I think that's going to be super cool. I like it. It's all shaping out. It's going to be really good. All right, so let me get out of this one, and then I'm going to bring up the terrain house rules. We'll go over in a second. It's all good. Just wanted to know for my own narrative writing. Fair, yeah. I'm going to take it from the perspective of maybe not a prequel, but maybe just alternate events, if you will. Will our 3 games be one planet or spread across? Your 3 games will be spread across all 3 planets. So this is the thing that I was really excited. Each of you get to have a taste or a sample of what's going on with planets. There are 5 different battlegrounds each of those planets, and you're going to get to play on one of those 5 on all 3 planets. So you'll get to experience what the terrain is like, you're going to get to experience what the story is going on, and you get to be a deciding factor, winner or loser, so to speak, when it comes to attackers and defenders, to see what's going on. Keep in mind that this story follows some key characters here that are going to be more like witnesses to what's going on, rather than you imposing results onto them or needing to guide specific models or something like that. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, let's see. I wanted to look at. Oh no, where'd it go? Cool. Okay. Yep, and then we're going to talk about the first set of missions. Okay, so before I jump into the next thing, I guess 2 things. Number 1, let me know if you got any other questions about the lore we have so far. anything that you would like to add or any other questions that you might have regarding what's going on. I think it's pretty cool. Ron has done an amazing job with it, and I love the setup. And then 2, the other thing is, let me know if you have not had a chance to read the terrain house rules pack that I put out a little while ago. That is going to be important. I'm going to see if it's something that I can actually share into this for you guys to look at while we talk about it together. Let's see. I'm going to copy link. See, this might be. Hey, look at that. I can share the document. Awesome. Well, that's a cool magic trick. I'll remember that for next time. So, cool. Let's see. The stacking negatives has me really concerned, but also no, it's just a single day event. Yeah. So the stacking is actually pretty interesting. I had a lot of fun with it, but it does need some clarification because it does sound pretty wonky. But we'll kind of get into that as we go. So I'm going to kind of more or less read the document one for one, just so we're all on the same page. And then you guys can answer questions, or sorry, you can ask questions as we move along. So -2, which isn't that bad. Yeah. And I'm going to kind of get into that as well too. Okay. So the Nexus Ultima Terrain House Rules. Narrative Terrain Philosophy. Terrain of the current edition of Warhammer 40,000 often functions as standardized and predictable. Functions as in a standard and predictable way. For Nexus Ultimate Narrative event, terrain is intended to be more immersive, interactive, and visually impactful. These house rules add thematic effects to terrain features to create dynamic battlefields while still maintaining a balance and clarity. These additions designed to enhance relative gameplay without overriding core rules, mechanics, things like that. Let's see. -2 is pretty bad. Okay. I think we agree to disagree there, but 6s will hit regardless of negatives. Yes. So before I even really get into it, all standard rules still apply. So there is nothing where it stops anybody from being able to interact with anything. What is interesting about it is that this is cool ways to make more mundane terrain be impactful on the table. It's nothing too crazy. In fact, a handful of games that I found it to be very enjoyable, which I think is really cool. Because again, at the end of the day, game is, in this particular play style, is not about winning or losing. It's about telling the narrative, and it's about having a third player, in this case, the terrain and the planets, be interactive with our games. It's not a competitive nature, right? It's not something we want to just be there and something we can work around. It's something that you're going to need to learn and adapt to on the fly. So let's see. Okay. Not gonna lie, my initial thought when I read the rules was to play Shadowmark Talon and Prophet. I don't know what that means, but I tamped that power gaming desire. Okay. Get your power gaming out of. Yeah, okay. So I will put this lovely little caveat out there. If I catch anyone that is just trying to take advantage of the rules, just everything, I'm just gonna kick you out for the day. I don't need that kind of mentality. I know there are people that play the game at a high level of competitive. I really need you to take that and throw that away. That's not what this event or future events are for. And if that doesn't sound exciting for you, really sorry, but there's the door. Like that's not what this is about. So, cool. All right. So general terrain rules. So first things first, core rules still apply. All standard Warhammer 40K terrain rules remain fully in effect unless specifically modified as below. I put that one there because I want you to understand that it's terrain rules. It's not. This isn't supposed to replace something. It's all addition to. Hello, Lucy. Benefits of cover interaction. All additional terrain abilities introduced here count as benefits of cover for rules interactions. Abilities or rules interact with terrain or cover may interact with these effects accordingly. Meaning that if you have something that ignores cover or something that is would be interacted by cover, these rules still apply to that. And yes, I have a Kit Kat friend. Yes, come here. No, don't want to get closer. She is usually the cat that likes to be exactly out of reach so that I can't touch her. So this must be she's hungry. Let's see. Oh, yes. And then we boop the snoot. There we go. Boop. Eligible units. Unless otherwise stated, these additional terrain rules only affect units with the following keywords: infantry, beasts, and swarms. I really call those out because I want it to be impactful to those units. And I want bikers, cavalry, I guess you could argue artillery. I'm not sure if that's a keyword. Vehicles, monsters, things like that to not gain such crazy benefits or what could be crazy benefits from this. It's meant to enhance infantry, beasts, and swarms, which I feel like, with minor exceptions, really left out, especially battle line units. They feel just kind of meh still, but that's always been the case. Like and subscribe for Kitty. Yes. Terrain ability limits. Each terrain feature will typically have one additional terrain ability keyword. From this document, no terrain feature will have more than 2 benefits of cover effects, including the standard terrain rules. What I mean by that is that if you would get +1 to your save and -1 to hit, then those are the 2 you get. Putting this kind of in front so that people aren't like, oh, well, this terrain also looks like this. I'm going to try to get this and this ability. And just please stop trying to power game a system. It's supposed to be narratively thematic and interactful. And that's I did have to create a keyword because I realized that I have certain pieces of terrain that do not fit anything for what Games Workshop has. And so I created the keyword structure. It's a visual identifier. So certain terrain features have the structure keyword to help visually distinguish important narrative terrain. These will clearly be identified before the games begin and follow the special rules listed later in the document. And then modifier caps, which is the last one. All additional terrain modifiers stack cumulatively with other game effects, but are capped at a maximum +2 or -2 to any single stat or dice roll. So first things first that you got to understand is that with cap modifiers, that pertains to other non-terrain abilities. So if you have the stealth keyword and you're behind a terrain feature that has -1 to hit, then those 2 abilities will stack to a maximum of -2. I think that's kind of probably the best example, because a lot of the other stuff doesn't really stack. It's just gives you an ability. There are some things, but fairly rarely. But on the same note, if somebody has something that ignores cover or gives them the ability to get +1 to hit or has an ability to ignore all modifiers to hit, then it's redundant. This stuff goes out the window, right? But what that does, in my opinion, is it makes those abilities seem more important. And the other thing, too, that I do want to stress is that these terrain rules and modifiers are going to be unique and cool, but they're also going to be unique across the different tables. So Grammaton might have more features that have -1 to hit. Zek might have more features that are going to give you lone op, and Malekith or whatever, I'm on a blank names already, are going to have more structures and things like that. So I did go one step further and I did add some clarification keywords. So basically, I went through the core rulebook and I pulled their keywords and broke them up into 2 parts. One is going to be the primary terrain keyword. So ruins, we know what those are. Woods, we know what those are and what they look like. Battlefield debris, kind of know what that looks like. A hill, I hope everyone knows what a hill looks like. Barricades, craters, and then I added structure here. Terrain category types are things like area terrain, obstacles, hills again, barricades again, and then impassable terrain, which I think technically I also added because there isn't really impassable, but enough we all know what impassable is. And so just kind of added that back on there. Cool. So additional terrain ability keywords. These keywords may be assigned to terrain features to provide extra narrative effects, which I guess that's the other thing I should bring up too, is that these are some interesting things that I'm going to be playing with and adding to, but it's not like there's going to be just a plethora of them throughout the tables. If everything goes according to plan, I'm actually going to have cool little token icons that are going to be on the terrain features. So you can look at it pretty quickly and it'll tell you what it is. For the most part, it's just going to be the keyword. And then on the side of the table, we're going to have a little document that says you can expect this table to have these abilities. So you know what you're looking for. So, first thing that I added. Oh, wait, got a question. Impassable is sort of a thing because of 10th edition. You can't have your models in place where base overhangs wobbly. Yeah. Okay. So true, but that is a symptom of the physical structure of it. I'm saying impassable as in it could be a flat circle, but it's going to be labeled as impassable before you not ever have any part of it go over it and things like that. Which is why I added it kind of as a keyword. So that I can it's fine. I think everyone's going to get the gist of it. So, which again, I should also stress that please try to take these with rules intended and little less than rules as written. Because I am no rules lawyer, nor am I a rules writer. I'm just trying to get on paper so you guys have something to refer to. Mhm. Let's see. So rough ground. So rough ground is a really interesting one, and I have a lot of fun with this. This is what I've added to things like broken earth, small pieces of rubble, unstable footing, and craters and things like that. So units that are not vehicles or monsters suffer -2 to advance and charge rolls. And then units with fly keyword are unaffected. Basically, normal moves are going to be unaffected. Do you want to call that out in there? So if you just kind of walk across a crater, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to take a 4-inch movement and make it 2 inches a turn, right? We're not going to do that again. But if you were to advance or charge, or maybe have a benefit to advancing and charging, now this is going to modify that by 2 inches. I think what's really cool about this is that it makes craters, little rubbly bits and things like that more impactful, because now almost any unit can be behind it or get it in between you, and now you as the opponent are going to have a harder time to get through that, or maybe want to go around it, or what it may be. After reading a little more, I am for the first time in to bring a flyer. Yeah, cool, good. Yeah, I think flyers are definitely something else that I will work on for other events. But something with the fly keyword is going to be fine in this. I would love to see more flyers. As a side note, I have a very sad suspicion that flyers will go away in the next edition almost completely. I think they'll yank all the models, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Anyway, talked about rough ground. So rough ground, think of it as rough ground, craters, broken ground, little rubbly bits. It's going to give you -2 to advances and charges, but not normal movements. Okay, obscured structure. So dense structural terrain interferes with accurate ranged fire. So obscured structures are going to be a -1 to hit for hit rolls for ranged attacks originating outside this terrain feature, and this terrain feature would not block line of sight. So it's very important that you understand that buildings that block line of sight and something that's going to have the obscured structure rule will never be the same thing. They're going to be different. Big reason that I did this is that I really like Mechanics terrain. I think it looks super cool and it's thematic, and it is the most useless piece of terrain in the game right now. So this is going to make it so that things are -1 to hit. So if you've got models on top of it, if you've got models underneath, behind it, it's cool because now you have a -1 to hit. It's one of those things where you can get into it and shoot out of it, and you're penal for it as much as the opponent is shooting into you or shooting through you. So offers something a little bit of a stretch, and it partners really well with things like stealth, so you can really double down on that, which I think is cool. Did someone mention aircraft? Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, Romus, I forgot. You have like an entire fleet of aircraft. We will get there. We'll bring that back too. So anyway, so that is secured structure. The next one I have is defensive cover. Now, this is probably going to be the controversial one, but I will tell you right now, I had the most fun with this. This was a really, really cool piece of terrain. It made some of the little things like barricades and pipelines and things like that really, really useful all of a sudden. So, fortified or reinforced terrain provides exceptional protection. Applies to infantry, beasts, and swarms units with all models within 3 inches of the terrain feature. So, first things first, I do want to clarify this. Each model must be within 3 inches, but not wholly within. Clarifying that because number one, we got those fun little combat gauges. It makes it really easy to just kind of measure over that and make sure that as long as it's touching the base, you know you're within range of it, which is really fun. And again, it only applies to infantry, beasts, and swarms. The only infantry that I could see this being really stacked well with is anything that is infantry with a very high toughness to begin with. But even still, not a big deal. Somebody has like ignores cover or walks around this thing, they can take away this ability pretty easily. What it does is ranged attacks whose line passes through this terrain feature to the majority of the models in the unit suffer a -1 to wound rolls. So, for instance, if there's 5 Terminators that are behind a barricade that have the defensive cover, they're going to get -1 to wound. That is wicked powerful. Granted, I know there are a lot of things that will also give options for -1 to wound or whatever it may be. So you could be seeing upwards of -2 to wound on some of these things. This is, in my opinion, designed to make things like battle line units or snipers or artillery infantry actually is a really good example too, that can hunker down and quite literally just kind of like bury themselves in and start bombing away. And they're less likely to die, and they can be a little bit more proactive in the game where they might otherwise be useless. This is me trying to take Gears of War and make that slide up and get behind cover ability a thing. But what's important to know, it is the majority of the models. So if there are 5 guys behind the terrain feature and the enemy walks around it so that they can see 3 of them, the unit ability. Also, if you have something that ignores cover, you lose this ability. Or if you just shoot them in the back, they don't have this ability. This effect is checked when the unit is selected as a target and not during casualty removal. What's important to know about this is that if I position and I can see the majority of the unit and I can start shooting at them and they don't have -1 hit, when you pull 2 models that wouldn't have, -1 to wound, if you pull 2 models that would not be the -1 to wound, you don't then automatically gain it back. So this is kind of like declaring your weapons. I'm going to declare shots here and just shots here. When I declare those is when you determine if you get the -1 to wound. And I really liked that. Next one is concealed positions. So dense terrain allows units to remain hidden until the last moment. Again, infantry and swarms units gain this. They literally gain the lone operative core ability while in the terrain feature. So this is really cool because what this allows you to do is take an infantry unit like a Devastator squad or something that wants to get into combat, can very easily get ripped up. And because we're not going to have just a ton of buildings across the table, this is another way to block line of sight a degree, because giving a unit lone operative means that the enemy can shoot at them if they're within 12 inches. So now the enemy has to forward and really try to get up the table to take advantage and to take them out. But now you're also getting closer to something that might want to get into combat or just wants to hammer you the whole time. So I think that one's pretty interesting. Let's see. I assume it applies to the unit that's shooting back to. Are you talking about the... Hi, Lucy. Yes, that is my water. Brad, are you referring to the concealed positions or are you referring to defensive cover with the -2 wound? Because defensive cover, your unit has to be within 3 inches. So the enemy that is shooting at you will suffer a -1 to wound. But yeah, for defensive cover, no, this is kind of one-way street in this. So if there's a barricade of some kind and we have a unit that's on one side of it and they're shooting over it, what they're shooting at isn't going to be -1 to wound. But when they're being shot at, they will have the -1 to wound. So you'll need to move around the structure so that you take that element away from them. So yeah. And then concealed positions. The unit does need to be within terrain feature. Again, this isn't wholly within. They just need to be toe on, so to speak. But this is a cool addition to anything that might have area terrain rules. Cool. All right. What if there's a unit on one side of the barricade and a unit on the other side, both shooting point blank at each other? Then yeah, you are both within 3 inches of it. You're both -1 to wound. I mean, that's very spy versus spy of each other, chucking grenades and making it harder to hit. But yes, that would work in that case. Mm-hmm. And then let's see. Mm-hmm. Cool. It's that scene in Naked Gun. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yep. Cool. All right. And then one of the last ones I implemented was impassable. So terrain that cannot realistically be occupied. Models cannot be set up on and moves on or move through this terrain. Units with the fly keyword may move across it, but cannot end the movement on it unless it otherwise specified. You guys know what impassable is. I did put it in black and white though, just so that we have a kind of a reference point. I do have a combination of terrain that makes this really interesting. So what's interesting about this impassable is the way I'm going to be implementing it. Give me like 2 seconds. I'm going to grab a couple of pieces of terrain. I'm trying to show you what I mean. Let's see. One, two. Okay. Oh, this is just hypothetical for right now, but it gives me 3 pieces of terrain for you guys to look at least. So I have these 3 little rubbly bits. In the game of Warhammer, you might use it as ruins and that vehicles and stuff can move over, but are under 2 inches. And they're useless, right? So what I did was I made certain things, maybe not these specific ones, things with big spikes and whatnot that are coming out of the ground. I've been passable, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting them up on tables, something like this. So having 3 little pieces of terrain together doesn't sound like much, right? We're gonna have just enough room for maybe a 40 millimeter base to get through it. But what it does is it makes smaller based units able through these. It's going to make it so that vehicles, monsters, bigger stuff, cavalry and bikes, they have to go clean around it. So now it takes up a huge ton of space. But the fun part about it is it creates a choke point. So what I've done is a couple of games, I've actually taken objectives and I've put about half the objective. So not the whole thing, right? It's not like just boom right in the center. It's about half the objective. So it's a little asymmetrical off to the side. And what happens is that a defensive unit, a battle line unit perhaps, can move onto it. And now all of a sudden the enemy has to charge through, but they can't end on these. So it quite literally funnels models into contact, which means that we're looking at, 2, 4, maybe 5 models making close combat attacks. It made this really interesting just simply by making something little like that be impassable. So thank God Doomday Arcs can fly. Yep. So now that being said, it will be interesting to see. I am going to do a little bit more tests on it because what the other thing is that don't want little things like this to be so impactful that it makes model impossible to play. So I may add an additional element to this where it is more like the ruin rules like we have for the competitive play, where vehicles and stuff can move through it, but they can't end on it. So you'd be able to like get right up to it and then boom, move clean over it, whatever. So we all know you're bringing Pantheon of Woe and for God, please no. Please don't do that. So anyway, that's impassable. That's kind of how I'm implementing on certain planets, certain tables, certain battlefields. Make things kind of interesting. Again, I am trying to make this about playing with some other units you might not otherwise play with and giving those units that are mediocre a much more fighting chance. I've got, I don't know, maybe I just have bad dice rolls, like what else is new? But I have the artillery from my Leagues of Votes, which are super cool. I like them. I think they're great. Wow, they do really awful for me for 110 points. Like those points could absolutely be spent somewhere else. But I think the coolest thing ever to shoot missiles under the ground and like bomb things. So something like that made them last 1 extra turn, which had them for 1 more turn to shoot and to try to hold an objective and stuff. That's what I'm really hoping that some of these terrain rules will allow us to do. Now, on to the last 2. This one is extra fun. I actually pulled this from one of the other campaign books in my Black library, which here I will give you a brief idea of how many collections of books I've had over the years. So this is called Unnatural Dread. Now, I'm going to put a little asterisk on that, name TBD, but I like where it's kind of going. this one. So, mhm. Oh yeah, yeah. I was considering an all Gravis list. That's pretty cool, actually. And I think it'd be super cool to see. Really, really tough. All Gravis army would be cool. Okay, unnatural dread. I'm going to get into this. So, warp tainted or psychological oppressive terrain saps morale. Units within 3 inches of this terrain are treated as below half strength for all rules purposes, regardless of actual model count or number of wounds. So, unnatural dread. This is going to be on specific structures, anything from chaotic relics to holy statues to Necron pylons, all kinds of stuff. But I added this in because there's a lot of weapons or equipment or battle shock rules that immediately start coming into play, start inflicting this on units. So we'll see how things land. But right now, my intent is not to have the be on top of an objective because unless you're playing Dark Angels in that one detachment, it like just nukes your ability to take objectives. That's the point. Well, the point of this is to make things potentially hit those units harder, potentially damage some units, or if you are within range of it at the beginning of your command phase, you're below half strength, which means you got to take a battle shock test. So it might be kind of interesting to see how that goes. I think that's going to be really cool. This one doesn't specifically call it out because I did put it towards the top, but this only affects infantry and arms. So cavalry, bikers, vehicles, monsters, things like that won't be affected by this. So let's see. All right, John, this was one that I had a question with. If a weapon ignores cover, it says a unit can't take the benefit of cover. So unnatural dread will be ignored and will, or only if it gives benefits. In this case, just to keep things kind of simple, is that it would take away this unnatural dread. We can look at it as different ways. Maybe rather than think of it as unnatural dread, maybe it's belief in the emperor. All of a sudden, that's taken away from you for a second as you're snapped back into reality. But yes, the idea is that you have something that ignored cover, it would take this away. So positives, negatives, right? Something to interact with. So, oh yes, posted both lists. So cool. Yeah. John, let me know if you have any other questions. Lucy, what are you getting up to? Oh, she's getting in trouble. She's climbing all over things. Yeah, I saw. I actually don't understand how you have a Dreadnought Warlord. Oh, so one of the things that we talked about is that we are allowing. Yes, Kitty. Look at this beast. I'm sorry, it's cat time. Can you even see her? This is all gray, right? Well, you can barely see her face on this giant black TV of mine. Yeah, so I talked with Brad about this. He really wants to do Iron Hands army where his warlord is a dreadnought. So I said, yeah, absolutely, that sounds super cool. So we're doing that. But the thing is that even though it's a warlord, it's still not a character, and so it can't take enhancements and can't be, stuff like that. It's just cool narrative fluff. If there is something that would trigger when a warlord is killed or whatnot, it would still trigger off of that because we're going to do that. And I think that would be fun. We're hoping that maybe to create Dreadnought characters with this new book coming out. Dreadnought Warlord would be so cool. Let's see. Dreadnought Warlord will likely be allowed. The new Maelstrom, stuff even after he is do this. Yeah. Can't take them yet. I got you. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited for the Maelstrom stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I think the number one that's like perfect timing for these events to be doing. But yeah, it's about the narrative and about cool stuff. So I want to see cool stuff do cool things. So literally a Lord on a Triarch Stalker, so I wouldn't be surprised if it would run. Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking too. 9th edition Iron Hands were able to make a Dreadnought character. I remember those. Really hoping some random schmuck does something cool during the first event so I can turn him into a character. Nice. Yeah, that'd be cool. There we go. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So that I think is everything for the train rules. I do apologize. Oh, nope. Lies. I got one more. Let's go over the keyword that I actually had to add here, which is structure. So large structures, alien constructs, dramatic natural formations. These are all what I'm going to be kind of classifying as structure. This will really be more prevalent for a couple of pieces of terrain, and then certain tables were very obvious. But this is typically large enough for models or other terrain to be placed around on top or around. So this is a big piece of terrain. Okay, it's going to count as a hill for infantry, beasts, and swarms, but otherwise, your other things cannot get on top of it. So this is going to give a kind of an advantage for infantry, beasts, and swarms. It's also going to make certain things not be able to interact with that, and hopefully for good and bad reasons. And then last bullet point on this, counts as impactful terrain all over the units unless types unless specified otherwise. I actually should probably put a note on this that units with the fly keyword, regardless of the other keywords, will be able to interact with it. Just realize that's something I kind of messed up. But the idea would be is that a tank cannot drive up on top of this thing and then start pew-pewing. You can't have bikers or cavalry, right, charge up and over on top of this thing. Again, though, I do want to clarify things that are big, right? Because it's going to be a terrain feature with another terrain feature on top, and maybe even another terrain feature on top of that. The idea is that it is a very large formation. I will tell you right now, one of the tables I will have is going to have a almost 4 foot by almost 5 foot structure. Like, it's massive. It is 80% of the table. Which is why, yes, actually, the giant bastion is a really good example of that. That'll be something that infantry, beasts, and swarms, or things with fly, can get up on top of, but Imperial Knights are not getting on top of this. And I actually would like to point out that for everybody that signed up, we have no Knight players, which is both good and bad thing. I say that because it's good because there won't be problems running into these rules, because I will tell you right now, any Knights armies will absolutely struggle with some of these tables that I'm going to be building. But also at the same time, it's kind of sad because it's like part of the game, I guess, but we'll add them in later on. So Chaos Knights would love the natural. Oh yeah, that's a good point. So let's see. Yeah, Deep Strike. Yeah. So what do you mean by strike, Brad? Are you asking for structure rules? Because I'm not sure what units have Deep Strike that are not infantry, beasts, or swarms. So I guess I would want some clarification on that. Yes. Let's see. And go anytime a unit does something. Yes, I like that. Catan. Oh, the Catan can Deep Strike? Ooh, that's gnarly. Oh, Dread Knight. Okay. Yeah, all right. Good catch. Yeah, this is why we have these conversations. Say that, no, they're monsters. That's what it is, isn't it? Interesting. Because, yeah, Walker, I just realized, should be a walk up. Ooh, that's kind of awkward. Yeah, that one's going to be rough. Okay, so for the purpose of this, I'm going to say Deep Strike would be allowed. So if you do have something that's big that could Deep Strike and land on top of it, then cool. Walkers are separate. Yeah, I know that. So to be fair, realistically speaking, it's vehicles that I don't want to see clambering over these things, because that looks really weird. It would be like the equivalent of a vehicle being able to drive up on top of a armored container, right? But a drop pod absolutely could land on top of it because it's big enough. So that's a really good point to bring up. So huzzah. Yes, Walker is separate keyword. Yep. Also fly. Yeah, that's a good catch one on that one. I'm gonna have to play around with that a little bit more. Basically, it's anything that's going to be wheeled or tracked physically. Right? Those are the things that would not be able to get up on top of this unless they have another mode of transportation that would allow them to get on top of it. So again, going back to the drop pod thing, somebody wanted to drop a drop pod on top of an armored container. Realistically speaking, I'd allow that because gravity says yes. But I don't want to see Lehman Russ parking itself up at a 45-degree angle on top of a structure so that its cannon can shoot out and over. I think that is against the rules of intent for that. So cool. All right, that's it. I think that's what I've got for the terrain house rules. Hopefully, you have a little bit better of an understanding of what I'm trying to bring to the table, and not just enforce something upon you guys. I want terrain to matter, and I think Games Workshop has done a good job with taking what is the competitive scene, using what is the most binary possible terrain feature, which is buildings, and implement them in a really positive way that way. And that's why I have, if you hadn't noticed, there are no changes to buildings. I love they are. I think it's great. Actually, I take that back. I just realized one of the other things, and I should absolutely house rule this. There is going to be physical buildings that have openings on the lower floor. Lower floor is always going to count as blocking line of sight. So going back to those days, because I like to be able to hide our stuff. I want to be able to put something in a building and it hides and is protected. I want to be able to put things behind a structure and it's defended that way. I want to put infantry behind a barricade, and now they're plus, they're -1 to their defense. So things like that. -1 to wound. Good Lord. All right. Had to think about that. Yeah. And then the last thing that I wanted to jump into is the missions. First glance at the missions, and talk a little bit about that. I don't want to go too quickly because this part is important, but I will dive into it more. Let me grab my chapter approved mission cards and I'll explain it. Okay, I am back, and if I can find the document on this one as well, because I do like test run for this. I think that's on my other account. Go. Is this it? Nope. Is this it? Oh, here we go. Cool. All right. So I'm going to be talking about Alpha Sector missions. So I'm not going to give away what planet Alpha Sector is just yet, because I don't want to do all that. But I want to explain some things to you. So here is the rough synopsis of this. Let me make sure that I'm reading this correctly. Yeah. All right. And I'm going to go into it. So let's see. Yep. First things you need to realize is that there are going to be unique special rules for deploying your army on the 3 different planets. Okay, I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to give it too much. And I can talk about it next week, and so you guys are ready for that. Based on which planet or sector you're battling in, you are going to have to use either your 1,000 point or your 1,500 point list. So know that. Here we go. So each sector will have 2 asymmetric war missions and 2 unique deployment cards. In each round of play, both players will need to make the decisions together to find out how their engagement happens, using the fun of the narrative system to help depict battles that happened there, and giving every player a slightly unique experience. So each round will be 2.5 hours long, giving players hopefully enough time to learn about their unique engagement rules and play their games. In each round, the attacker will first choose one of the 2 deployment mission cards. Welcome back, Lucy. Cards be played. Next, the defender will pick one of the 2 primary mission cards. So clarify, we're going to be using 2 different asymmetric warfare missions, and we're going to be using 2 different deployment mission cards. And then the attacker is going to choose how the deployments are set up, but the defender is going to choose the primary mission. That's important. Then both players will select 3 fixed secondary mission objective cards. These cards will be selected for their opponent that will best negatively impact the game. Finally, each player will then discard one of the fixed mission cards, keeping the other 2 as their active secondary objectives to score points in the game. Any cards listed below, let's see. Oh yeah, ignore that part. Yep, because that's back end stuff. That's not for you guys. Cool. So let me get into that a little bit for you guys. Let me pull those. Don't need that. Asymmetric warfare. Let's see. We're going to look at alpha. So we are looking at. Hold on. Why is it spread like that? Okay. Hold out and purge the foe, which I think that one is actually not a metric. That is just the standard mission one. Purge foe. There we go. Cool. And then our deployments are going to be last stand and hammer and anvil. Okay. Last stand and hammer and anvil, which, good lord, if we don't all know what that looks like at this point. Please keep in mind that all of these missions we're playing are going to be incursion level threats. So rule of 2 applies, and battle line units will get to actions and still do stuff. Okay, so you guys in the very first round, you're going to randomly determine who is the attacker and the defender. Going forward, if you win your game, you become the attacker in the next round. If you lose your game, you become the defender in the next round. Pretty interesting. So the attacker is going to get to choose one of these 2 cards. So basically, they know this information. They're going to choose which one they think benefits them the most. They're the attacker after all. They're going to be the aggressor. What is also important to note is that attacks will always go first. The defender will then get to choose between these 2 different mission cards. We got Hold Out and Purge the Foe. One is going to be asymmetric warfare, and the other one is going to be a primary mission, just standard. I will tell you now that most of them are going to use the asymmetric warfare. There just wasn't enough to do 2 on every table. So we're going to go. Defender is going to choose how we score points. Attacker is going to choose how we deploy our armies. And then if a combination of things happen, it's going to unlock some extra stuff, which is kind of cool. From there, you guys are going to then... There we go.